Hey, welcome. Today we're going to talk about a revolutionary idea that basically turned language learning completely on its head. It's all about this huge shift from just knowing the rules of a language to actually using it to get things done in the real world. Let's get into it.
Come on, we've all been there, right? You spend months, maybe even years, just memorizing vocabulary lists and verb charts. You can absolutely crush a worksheet, but the second you're face to face with a real person, you just freeze. Well, that exact feeling, that frustrating gap, is what sparked a full-blown revolution in how we teach languages.
You see, for the longest time, the traditional way was all about building this perfect internal model of a language in your head. The whole focus was on being correct, on memorizing the grammatical blueprint. But here's the problem. A lot of learners ended up with a flawless blueprint, but had no idea how to actually build the house.
Yeah, the old goal had this kind of fancy name, linguistic competence. The entire game was about knowing the rules, the grammar, the syntax, all those vocab lists. But this created this huge, massive gap between what you knew about the language and what you could actually do with it. You could be a walking encyclopedia of the language, but still not be able to do something as simple as ask for directions.
But then, around the 1960s and 70s, a totally new idea started bubbling up. Linguists, educators, they all started arguing that the whole point of language isn't just to be correct, it's to communicate. And that, right there, was a fundamental, game-changing shift in thinking. This whole new philosophy was just perfectly captured by the linguist Del Hymes. He said, there are rules of use without which the rules of grammar would be useless. And that just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? I mean, what good is knowing perfect grammar if you don't know how to use it, or when, or with who? The grammar is just the tool. Communication, that's the real goal.
And so the new goal became communicative competence. This is the big one. It's not about being able to recite rules from a textbook. It's about being able to successfully navigate real social situations. It's being able to complain, to apologize, to invite someone out, to persuade them. It's not just about what you know, it's about what you can actually do with the words.
So this communicative competence thing is built on 4 key pillars. First, you've got your linguistic competence. That's the foundation, your basic grammar and vocab. But then you add sociolinguistic competence. That's knowing what's appropriate. Like you don't talk to your boss the same way you talk to your best friend, right? Next up is discourse competence. Just understanding the natural flow of a conversation, how to connect your ideas, how to tell a story that makes sense. And finally, my favorite, strategic competence. This is your MacGyver skill. Knowing how to use gestures or rephrase something just to get your point across even when you're totally blanking on the perfect word.
Now, this new focus on doing things with language, well, it actually came from a pretty surprising place: philosophy. Philosophers started arguing that when we speak, we're not just making neutral statements, we are literally performing actions.
Okay, the key concept here comes from the philosopher John Austin, and it's called illocutionary force. Now, that sounds super complex, but it's actually pretty simple. It's just the speaker's intention. It's the hidden action or purpose behind the words. Are you warning someone? Offering help? Making a request? That secret intention, that's the illocutionary force.
To make this crystal clear, let's just take a super simple statement. Literally, all it does is tell you the time. But its real meaning, its illocutionary force, changes completely depending on the context. And this is where it all clicks. It's 8 o'clock could be a parent urging their kid, hey, you're late, hurry up. It could be a suggestion to a friend, the movie's about to start. It could be providing information, like the train is leaving now. Or it could even be a warning, like the store's about to close, we gotta go. The words are exactly the same, but the action, the meaning is totally different. And understanding this, that's the key to real communication.
So if language is all about doing, then how should we learn it? Well, this is where communicative language teaching, or CLT, completely transformed the classroom. It went from a place of passive memorization into an arena for active, hands-on communication. A communicative classroom looks totally different from a traditional one. Instead of boring grammar drills, you might start with something real, a news article, a restaurant menu, a video clip. Then you're given a task to do. Maybe you and a partner each have a different part of a map, and you have to talk to each other to find the hidden treasure. The crucial part here is that the language isn't the subject you're studying. It's the tool you're using to solve a real problem.
And this whole approach is guided by a few core principles. Getting your message across, that's language use, is way more important than perfect grammar or usage. Collaboration is huge because it just gives you so many more chances to actually speak. And errors, they're not seen as failures. They're just a totally natural, expected part of learning. Everything you take in and everything you say should be meaningful and personal to you.
But, look, no revolution is perfect.
CLT has pretty much become the dominant way to teach languages, but it's definitely not without its critics. And it's really important to look at some of the challenges and maybe some of the blind spots.
Okay, one of the biggest criticisms is that CLT might work great for a language like English, which has relatively simple grammar. But for languages with really complex grammar, like Finnish or German, trying to just absorb all those complicated rules by talking, that's called inductive learning, can be incredibly difficult. It might be like trying to learn calculus by just looking at a bunch of correct answers.
There's also this risk that if you focus only on functions, like how to apologize, it can just turn into a phrasebook approach. You might learn 5 different ways to say "I'm sorry," but you won't learn the underlying grammatical pattern that lets you create thousands of your own correct sentences. The focus on what you're doing can sometimes come at the expense of understanding how it's built.
And finally, this is a big one. We have to ask if the method itself is culturally biased. CLT really encourages public performance, taking risks, expressing personal opinions. And those are all values that are pretty common in individualistic Western cultures. But they might really clash with cultural norms in societies that place a higher value on group harmony, on certainty, and on avoiding public mistakes.
So, with all those criticisms in mind, what's the big takeaway here? It's this. Communicative language teaching created a seismic shift. It completely changed the definition of what it means to be successful at learning a language. The goal was no longer to be a walking dictionary or a grammar book. The goal was to be an effective communicator.
The entire philosophy just flipped. The goal went from linguistic competence to communicative competence. The focus moved from getting the form and accuracy perfect to conveying meaning and being fluent. The learner was no longer just a passive bucket for rules, but an active communicator. And the teacher, well, the teacher went from being a rule explainer to being a facilitator, someone who guides students as they learn by actually doing.
And that leaves us with this really big, fascinating question that teachers and learners are still debating today. If being able to communicate is the ultimate destination, what is the absolute best way to build the grammatical foundation you need to get there? It's that central tension that continues to shape how we all learn and teach languages all over the world.